Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 198. And today I am finally sharing the full story, answering all of the questions around why I quit being a lawyer. Now, this is not just for lawyers, because I get asked these questions by lots of people, lawyers and non-lawyers. I used to think that these questions were just about me, like people were just curious. But the fact that people keep asking them for over 10 years tells me that it's actually more about them than me. I think many people have dreams or inklings of doing something different, whether it's leaving their profession or going in a totally different direction. Maybe it's just quitting a job that you've been in for a long time. And so I think their questions to me are really trying to get information for themselves about how do you find the courage and the confidence to know that it's the right move. And that's why I wanted to go ahead and record this episode today. So I think you're going to learn some things about me, but hopefully you learn a lot about yourself as well. And you are able to get a little bit more clarity as to your own situation and your own satisfaction or dissatisfaction in your career. So let's get started. Question number one, the question I get asked most often: why? Why did you quit being a lawyer? And for me, the reason is threefold, I think. First is I was bored. Now, look, being a lawyer is challenging, and you were busy all the time, very long hours, very demanding. So I'm not saying that I was fiddling my thumbs, therefore I was bored. No, I had simply been practicing, I think, for long enough that everything was starting to feel the same. Might be a different fact pattern, different people, different clients, but it was starting to look the same. And for some people, that's great. It gives them confidence. It makes their job easier. For me, I was getting bored. I was not bored with the management side of things. So when I left my firm, I was a partner and practice group leader at one of the largest firms in the country. So I was both practicing law and I was in a management position. I loved the management. That I was not bored with that, but I was bored with the practice of law. So that was one of the reasons why I left. Another reason I left was because I was frustrated with just the politics, misogyny, sexism, racism. And I don't mean that it wasn't always overt. In fact, most times it was not overt. But there are so few women and people of color at the top. And even though I think most people had great intentions and they were more than happy to have people that were women or people of color at the top, it was only if they did it a very certain way, which was their way. And it didn't seem as though people were open to the concept that maybe they were going to have to change in order for more people to get at the top, because in their mind, like that was somehow lowering standards, as opposed to recognizing that maybe there was a better way that was just as rewarding. And there had been some votes that just made it very clear that at the end of the day, a lot of progress was not going to be made. And so I was frustrated with that. And I just started to feel as though I could make a bigger difference outside the firm than within it. And part of that was just, I think, also the hours and, how things are done. And I just thought there was a better way. I just thought there was a better way. I didn't think that it needed to be as stressful as it was. The third reason why I left, and it was probably the most important reason, was I still very much had this desire, this yearning to be doing something quite different. So growing up, I always had two things in mind. One was to be the first woman president. The other was to be a big star. Movie star, a big country music star, a television host, whatever. Big star in the entertainment industry. Those were the two hopes and dreams. And I got into law because of that first dream of being the first woman president. I realized pretty quickly that politics were nasty and I didn't actually want to be a part of that. But I still was in the legal profession. And so I think over time, the desire to be able to have that creative outlet and to be more, we'll say, performative. I know that can mean different things, but I'm truly meaning it in like the entertainment sense, the video sense, the microphone sense, the stage sense. And that was really pulling on me. And at that point in my career, I thought, this is the time to make that change. And if I don't make it now, I probably never will. And so I wanted to pursue that. So that was my why. That was why I left. The next question I get asked is, how did people react? How did people react? And I think the reason why people ask this is because they are concerned that if they leave their profession or their job, they're worried about what other people will think. And the bad news is they reacted exactly like you probably expect they will react to you. People were confused. They did not get it. They did not understand. I think they were worried that I was making a huge mistake, worried that I would not be able to be successful with the new business. I think they were disappointed, especially a lot of my colleagues, but my family too. They were just really disappointed because I was successful and I was doing well. And so for a lot of the women, I think they were like, well, if Heather can't cut it, if Heather doesn't want it, like, if she can't do it, who can? Because I was just so ambitious and driven. And they were like, God. And then also, like, who's going to fight for us? So many women and people of color were coming to me, and I tried to advocate, and they were like, oh, well, now what? And I think the people at the top who saw that I was a woman and I did care about equity and equality. When I left, I think it was a bit of a blow to them. And I think many of them did think I was a good lawyer and they enjoyed my company as a colleague. And so, yeah, family. I was the first, well, I'm the only lawyer in my family. And so that was such a big thing for me to be able to achieve that. And to then say I was walking away, I think it was disappointing. So yeah, most people did not react like, that's amazing, way to go. They reacted more with, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this. Why are you doing this? Are you sure you want to do this? All of those questions. So, and a lot of people were even asking things like, do you have a plan? Like they were worried, they were concerned. But to address what I think you're really asking, which is how do you deal with people who aren't happy with what you're doing, who are going to judge what you're doing? The way that I was able to get through that was I had some very strong beliefs. Now, I did not have these beliefs throughout my career, and I don't think that I could have walked away or left in earlier parts of my career because I did not have these beliefs. Also, I wasn't bored. I was really enjoying what I was doing. I still, you know, thought there were a lot of opportunities and that things were going to improve. And as a whole, I had a lot of hope. And I wasn't quite jaded yet. And I didn't yet have that yearning. Okay. So there was really no reason to have those beliefs. I would have questioned myself. But by the time I got to the point where I was ready to leave, I fully believed that I could go back. Whether it was my firm or another firm, I fully believed I could go back. I was a good lawyer. I was good at what I did. And I believed that people always are looking for good lawyers. People are always looking for people with work ethic. I had great work ethic. I had better work ethic than I was a lawyer. I always say that was one of the reasons I got ahead was I had a really amazing work ethic and I was very strategic. So, I was a good lawyer, but I'm just saying there were probably many lawyers who were much better than I was. But I believed I could go back. I did not think this was the end. I did not think this was permanent. I did not think that it was the end all be all. I think so many people think that there are only two options, stay or leave, and nothing in between. And I didn't buy into that. I believed there were plenty of options, plenty of alternatives, and this did not have to be a permanent final decision. 3, I believed that I could do anything. If I looked back, I had achieved so much. I had overcome so many obstacles. I had worked so hard for this, and I could do it again. I genuinely believed that I could achieve anything. I had that unshakable confidence. And I believed that I was doing the right thing. I believed that it was okay and good to follow my heart and my soul, regardless of what other people thought. So that was how I was able to not let those fears and thoughts and beliefs and insecurities of other people impact me or my decision. The next question I get asked is, how? How did you do it? And I think part of it is a logistical question, but I also think that part of it is like, how did you find the courage? Like, how did you actually get to the point where you knew, where you had the confidence to make the decision and go, this is the right thing for me? So for me, the main how was self-exploration. As soon as I started to have these feelings of I might be ready for something new or different, I really explored why I was having those thoughts, those feelings in the first place. I got really curious. I wasn't looking for an answer. I wasn't looking for a solution. I was simply looking. I was seeking. I was open to whatever answer was going to present itself, or answers. And not in the sense of like it was a final answer, but it was like answers to why I was feeling off. That self-exploration was key to my how, because through exploring that over the years, by the time I made the decision to leave, I was fully confident that it was time to leave. And not just that, but I knew why. That's always so important to me, because I feel like it's so easy to make changes or make decisions based on a feeling without understanding what's driving it beneath. And when you do that, you can find yourself in the same situation all over again, or you're still not satisfied and you can't figure out why. And so really spending that time to get to the root of the why was important for me. The other part of the how, which is a little bit more logistical, is money. So I saved. As soon as I started to realize that I might want to be an entrepreneur and start my own business, because that wasn't clear to me. When I started having these feelings that something was off, it wasn't like, oh, I want to go start my own business. When I realized, though, that I did want to start my own business, I started putting money aside in a separate bucket than our savings, anything else, right? Like it was money just for leaving. I wanted 6 months, not necessarily 6 months of our salary, but 6 months of our living, our lifestyle, exactly what it was. I didn't want to make any changes whatsoever. I wanted the lifestyle to be exactly the same. So I had to get really clear on where like money was going. At the time, I didn't have a very clear budget of what was coming in and out. I had budget for goals, but not really spending, expenses, that kind of thing. So because there was always more than I needed, which is a wonderful problem to have, not a problem at all. But that's why there was never a budget. So I was like, I want to get really clear on what is our lifestyle. And then I want to make sure that we have at least 6 months where if I don't bring in a dime, then I know that that's going to be fully covered. And then obviously there was a budget for starting the business, which wasn't that much. I kind of calculated exactly what I was going to need to get up and running. I'm work from home, and there just really wasn't that much to actually just very scrappy get it up and running. And I think that's different for each person. I always recommend at least 6 months. I think some people need and want more than that to feel comfortable. And you may not need that at all, right? Like if you're moving into a totally different profession or career, where you're still going to be making, good money, or it's a bit of a cut. But I do think that that was an important piece, and it's part of my story. So I'm sharing it with you. That part of the how was making sure that I felt financially secure in making that leap. And then the last part of that how for me personally was I had a supportive spouse. Now, he does not have an entrepreneurial bone in his body. He is very risk averse. So he was definitely scared and afraid and had a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, and we both talked through it. We were super open and honest about our feelings. It wasn't a one-time conversation. That happened for a long time. And he probably was not fully supportive at the beginning. He wasn't totally dismissive either. But by the time I did leave, he was supportive. He wanted me to be happy, and he didn't want to hold me back from going after what I wanted. And I think that was a really important piece. So for those of you who are in long-term relationships, I do think having a supportive spouse, it can definitely help. I'm really glad that I had that. The really nitty gritty though of like, how did you build out the plan, this and that? I didn't. For me, I'm an all in kind of girl. And when I was at the law firm, like up until the day I left, I didn't start pulling back. I wasn't half-assing it. If I'm going to be here and you're paying me to practice and to manage, I am all in on this. All in. And that's just my personality. So there wasn't a lot. And because the hours are long and there's a lot to do, to focus on, there wasn't extra time really to do the other business part. So I just trusted that when I made that transition and then I was all in on the business, that I could figure it out. I did go to a friend's house. She's a business lawyer, and we kind of did a little business plan, but it's kind of like, back of the cocktail napkin plan. And I just did it. For me, it was more important to take the leap and to jump during the window of when I felt ready, because I was concerned that if I overthought it, if I overanalyzed it, if I tried to get opinions from others, that I or they would totally talk me out of doing it. And it was something I really wanted to do for myself. So from that perspective, I did not really have a plan. I just trusted that I would figure it out, and I did. All right. So then the next question that I get asked is, do you regret going to law school? Do you regret having been a lawyer? And I think what that question really is, that was a lot of money and a lot of time. Do you regret having, spent all of that to then go do something totally different. And again, I think the reason they're asking that is because these are the questions they have. Like, I spent so much money on this degree. I spent so much time and energy getting to where I am. You could just be in a job. It's like, I've been here for so long. Like, why would I start over? And then would I regret having wasted so much time? Here's the thing. I don't regret going to law school, and I don't regret being a lawyer. I loved law school. Not necessarily the learning student part, but when I was growing up, I didn't know any lawyers. And the concept of going to get a professional degree or going to a fancy school or being around other people with money, that was not in my world, right? So when I got into Vanderbilt, when I went to Vanderbilt, for me, that was a fancy school. I was surrounded by a lot of people with money and old money, family ties. And it was very new and interesting and eye-opening for me. I couldn't get enough of it. I dressed up. Like, I didn't have nearly as much fun as most of the other people because I was serious. I was very serious about this opportunity. And I learned so much, like not just about law, but just about life and about business and opportunities and how the world really works, like how the other half live. I learned so much. And I loved Nashville. It was really great. And then there were the summer programs and the law firms. And that was mind blowing to me. When I was going into law school, when I was applying to go to Vanderbilt, I don't think I even had a concept of what these big firms looked like or how the summer programs worked. I was blown away by how fancy everything was. I was just like, what in the world am I even doing? It was wonderful to get to experience all of that. And then practicing law. It was so much fun to go to court. It was so much fun to argue and be competitive and think about my strategies and to work with clients in these big businesses. And I got to work with so many different celebrities, and there were fancy dinners, and I traveled all the time and got to go into court and go up against all of these older men. And I was doing important work, and it felt great. I loved it. I made so many friends throughout the country, leadership council on legal diversity, like best people in the world, some of my favorite memories. And I just have such great contacts with all of those people. And I really came into my own. I learned so much about business and management and leadership. Do I regret it? No, not 1 second. It's what led me to be where I am today. I could not have started the business that I started without all of that. And I don't regret it. I regret, I don't regret it, but like it annoys me that I'm still paying for that law degree. But that's, that's really a different issue, right? But I don't regret it. I would have done it all over again. And I want to put this out there because I want to make sure that this is like 100% open and honest. I do sometimes have my coulda, shoulda, woulda moments because when I was growing up, I either thought I was going to be the first lady president or I was going to be this big star. And I kind of pursued the lady president thing, right? I went the law route. And there are moments when I wonder, had I followed the entertainment route when I was 18 and gave it the same amount of love and ambition and strategy, could I have become a star in that arena? And I will never know. I try not to stay in that space very long because coulda, shoulda, woulda doesn't lead you anywhere good. And that's just not the path, right? Like that's not what happened. And so it is what it is. So I do sometimes have that regret and that wonder, but it's not actually related to like leaving the profession or leaving that career, which is what I think the question is really about. So no, I don't regret law school and I don't regret being a lawyer. Loved every minute of it and left at exactly the right time. And then the last question that I get asked is, do you miss it? Do you miss it? Do you think you'd ever go back? There are definitely things I miss about it. I do not miss the practice of law. Not really. Sometimes my ego does. It was cool to be an important person doing important things, walking into important rooms, being surrounded by important people. So I think my ego probably misses some of that. I really miss the camaraderie. I loved going into a big office and knowing so many wonderful people, and I had so many great friends there. And, I chose to become an entrepreneur. So for me, that's drastically different. If I want to talk to someone, I have to walk down the hall and talk to my cats, or get on Voxer or the phone, to talk to friends or others on the team, but we're all remote. So I miss that. I miss it a lot. I really miss that, but not enough or so much that it would make me want to go back. I miss the steady paycheck. It was a great paycheck and it was paid on the same day every single month, right? Like for me where I was at that law firm, I wasn't getting paid based on how much work I brought in that month. And it looks different as an entrepreneur. So do I miss that? Yeah. So much so that I would want to go back? Nope. I loved the management piece. I loved some of the parties, some of the networking. There were a lot of perks that I miss, but again, not enough that I would want to go back. I do not miss practicing law at all. No, not at all. And in fact, I'm on inactive status. I actually considered getting rid of my law license completely, but so many people freaked out. Friends, family, they were just like, that is a terrible decision. And I was like, well, I don't really care that much either way, but like, am I making a bad decision? So ultimately, my husband was like, well, what did Barack and Michelle Obama do? I was like, that's a good question. I didn't know. So I went and researched and looked it up. And they went inactive as opposed to like just giving up the license. So that's what I did. I'm just following in the steps of the Obamas. I figured those were pretty good role models. But I have no desire to practice again. Would I go back? If I had to, I could. I would want to be on the business management side of things, not the practice side of things. But I don't see that ever happening. I love being my own boss. I love creating my own rules. I like to do what I want, when I want. I've been able to create a structure where I have very firm boundaries. I'm not available all the time. I don't really have to deal with emergencies. And, I have the podcast, I have the video, I have the stage. I get to be on social media and definitely show up in a way that I would not have felt comfortable showing up, if I was in a company or also in the profession actively. So, I love what I have created so much that I just cannot imagine a world in which I would go back. So I hope that has been helpful. I hope that has been insightful. If you were just curious, there you go. You got the story. And if you're one of the people who actually have kind of your own thoughts around it, I hope it's provided some information for you to feel inspired, but also to know some of the things that you might have to work through or get ready for to feel confident and courageous enough to make that decision. If you need help with any of that, I actually have 3 ways that I could potentially help you. The first is Growth Accelerator. So if you have an idea or a business that you're wanting to start, this is a great place to do that, especially for professionals who already understand basic concepts, but worry about doing it on their own and may not be the best at marketing and sales. So Growth Accelerator is all about getting super clear on those offers, those services, who you are serving, your messaging, your marketing, your sales, where it's all streamlined so that when you hire someone to do your website, when you hire someone to do copy, if you do that, exactly what you're doing. It is a very set plan and it's going to set you up to succeed as opposed to just throwing spaghetti against the wall. One of the things I think so many people make a mistake doing when they start out, myself included, was like you just hire someone to do the website or other things, and you assume that like they're going to be the ones helping you with this stuff, but they're actually looking to you to give them guidance. They're going to execute on your vision. And if you don't have the clear vision, if you don't have the clear messaging, if you don't have the clear branding, they cannot help you. And it'll be disjointed, right? You got one person doing a logo, one do it like they don't see the full picture. So if you are wanting confidence and courage around that, this absolutely will set you up. If you need help with that self-exploration, if you want to get to the bottom of the why, if you want to be super clear as to whether you need to be tweaking, things within your own career, changing careers, starting your own business, all the things, joy in the journey is 100% what you need to be doing. It is my transformational retreat and mastermind community. So we have 8 weeks of that self-exploration. We have the luxury transformational retreat. And then we have masterminding after that. And then it's a community for life. So you get masterminding quarterly every year, as well as an invitation to come back to Miraval every year. It's just the alumni group. So it's really a place to, even as you make those decisions and move forward, you've got a group there who gets it and who has gone through something similar. Everyone who comes, it blows them away. The insights that they get, the clarity that they get, the confidence, the courage, it completely transforms their lives. And I know that sounds like a big claim, but it's just true. And so if you are needing that, it is an investment, but it is worth it. Go check that out. And then depending on when you're hearing this week and next, I've got some mid-year alignment workshops. Those are free. We're going to be reviewing the first half of the year, planning for the second, and that'll be a lot of fun too. So all of that is at my website, heatherjoyhubbard.com. And I will put those specific links in the show notes as well. So I hope that has been helpful. I hope it inspires you. And most of all, I hope that you move forward towards as much joy and satisfaction in your life and career as possible. All right, I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after-show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.